It is one of the most iconic civilizations in history, but in its past there is a bag of strange practices that would make those in the modern world crawl. Join us as we unearth ancient, strange and disgusting practices that were considered normal in ancient Rome. I'm not sure what archaeologists were looking for in ancient Roman tombs when they discovered that these people fed their dead for the afterlife at burial sites. There was food, especially animal meat. According to the legislators, a tomb is not a tomb unless there is an animal offering to the goddess Ceres. Some people speculated that the animal must be a pig, and so, while excavating burial sites, archaeologists expected to see pig remains in them, but were surprised to see different animals, including a fox, an animal that most people wouldn't dare eat. If we consider the words of a Roman poet, Ovid, who said that Ceres is content with little, if that little is pure, we may never understand what pure means to the goddess Ceres, because how can fox and fox coexist, pure in the same sentence? Well, let's not get into the head of the pure goddess. Let's focus on why we are here. Feeding the dead is a tradition of the Romans, and they even go as far as pouring honey, wine and food into the grave of the deceased through a pipe. This was done to appease people who thought they could forgive them in the afterlife and also to provide for their loved ones in the years to come. If you think this ancient practice is strange, then you haven't heard about the next one yet. The Romans drank the sweat of gladiators as a kind of special elixir. The sweat of these fighters was considered to have special powers, especially that of those who were successful in the arena. Wealthy women used to buy jars of this sweat, believing it to be an effective aphrodisiac. They even used it as a facial cream to improve their skin. Would you dare to try it if its effectiveness as an aphrodisiac was demonstrated? In ancient Rome, breaking a vow could have deadly consequences. The Romans had groups of vigilantes who severely punished those who broke their promises. Once found guilty, the individual lost all legal rights and could be murdered without the murderer facing legal consequences. Being considered homo sacer, an outcast, meant living in constant fear of being attacked at any moment. It was an extremely dangerous and oppressive situation. They had regular vomiting sessions. What makes a person vomit? Maybe she is sick or has become irritated by something. It also occurs when someone is too full from eating or drinking. It's just something that doesn't always happen. Wait. Scratch that, it happened all the time with the ancient Romans. I mean, these people vomited regularly just to free their stomachs. The Roman philosopher Seneca famously said that Romans had no qualms about vomiting. They vomited so they could eat, and then so they could vomit. That has to be the strangest thing you've heard today. Even rich, silk-clad Romans ate in half-reclining positions around a lavishly laid table, only to vomit afterwards, continue eating, and then vomit more. How is that possible? You see, the ancient Romans ate as if it were their purpose in life. Their lavish banquets often lasted several days, during which enormous quantities of food were consumed. And of course, their eating marathons required one simple technique: throwing up. When they were too full to eat and drink more, they would go to the bathroom and make themselves vomit. The most annoying part is that some Romans didn't even bother to leave the table. Instead, they vomited into pots or on the floor. The rich, with servants, called the servants designated as vomit collectors to crawl under the table and clean up the mess. You will agree that this is a very strange practice that cannot be normal in this day and age, but was considered normal in the past. Just imagining that is enough to make you nauseous. Let's take a minute to throw up. The ancient Romans performed brain surgeries without anesthesia, which is impressive considering the level of medical knowledge of the time. Patients survived these operations, as shown by skulls with surgery marks that healed over time. Although it is not understood how they endured pain without anesthesia, it demonstrates great skill and medical knowledge for that period. As for the abandonment of unwanted babies, the Romans considered this practice normal. Many babies died shortly after birth due to difficulties in childbirth or illness. The parents waited before naming the baby to make sure she survived. Before receiving a name, the baby was not considered fully human, and the head of the family decided her fate. Unwanted babies were abandoned on the street or thrown into the garbage dump, a practice that the Romans saw as normal. Even the founder of Rome, Romulus, and his brother Remus were abandoned at birth. The acceptance of infanticide in Roman society is difficult to understand from our current perspective. Public bathing systems and sponges are some of the things that could be associated with the modern world. While they were not exactly like modern ones, they still used pioneering sewer networks that are still replicated around the world to this day. Applying what the Etruscans had done before them, the Romans devised a sanitation system using covered drains to carry rainwater and waste away from Rome. Eventually, this sanitation system was replicated throughout the empire and was declared by contemporary historian Pliny the Elder to be the most notable of all the achievements of the ancient Romans. This feat of engineering allowed public baths, toilets, and latrines to spring up throughout ancient Rome. But what we cannot consider normal is the way they cleaned after using the bathroom. There was no toilet paper. Can you guess what replaced it? Let me help you with that. A sea sponge on a stick. Yes, you heard that right. Just imagine having to clean yourself with a sea sponge on a stick. Better get out of the bathroom and wait for civilization. Toothpaste was made with honey and crushed bones. If you're worrying about the oral hygiene of the ancient Romans because of everything you've learned about them today, you should worry about yourself. Respectfully, one thing those people weren't kidding about was their hygiene, and specifically, their oral hygiene. They recognized the value of maintaining healthy teeth and fresh breath, so they developed intriguing methods to keep their teeth in good condition. Ancient Romans used frayed twigs known as toothpicks or meswak, created from aromatic woods such as cinnamon or olive. They chewed one end of these twigs to create a brush-like consistency that they used to clean their teeth. And as for toothpaste, they used various ingredients to clean their teeth. A common paste consisted of crushed bones and oyster shells mixed with water, which served as an abrasive agent to remove plaque. Some also used a mixture of honey and powdered charcoal to polish their teeth. Even in the modern world, dentists use charcoal powder to whiten teeth, which shows that it was a great discovery. But what we can't understand is the mixture of honey, crushed bones, oyster shells and charcoal. Would you like to try it? Although if you end up using this combination and it works for you, don't hesitate to tell us about it. The murderers were kept in bags with snakes, dogs, roosters and monkeys. The most terrifying thing about the ancient Romans must be their methods of execution. Different crimes attract different types of punishments, but in ancient Roman history, all forms of execution are truly disturbing. While no method of execution is exactly pleasant, some are surely worse than others, given their duration and pain. A criminal sentenced to death in ancient times would be executed by strangulation, but for certain crimes there were harsher punishments. A much more popular type was to throw people from Tarpeian Rock, an 8-foot-high cliff from which traitors and murderers were thrown. However, the most severe must be the execution for the crime of patricide, which means the murder of his father. This particular method of execution is truly horrific and makes you wonder how the people who witnessed it were not traumatized by it. The method of execution is known as pena, which is Latin for sack penalty. It involved the convicted killer father being put in a sack with several live animals and then thrown into the water. The animals included a rooster, a dog and a monkey. One way or another, the condemned man would die because those animals would not remain calm being friends with someone in that situation. What a strange way to serve justice. Or do you think it was okay considering the crime? The blood of gladiators as medicine. Just when you thought you'd seen it all, the ancient Romans continue to prove they have more ways to make you think they came from a completely different planet. Ancient Roman medicine once consisted of sacrificial offerings and divine petitions. They believed that illness was a supernatural affliction and that health was a gift, which is different from how we see things today. For us, medicine is much more focused on illness and not spiritual at all. Even the way they treated their illnesses called spiritual problems is nothing but disgusting. They depended on consuming the blood or liver of gladiators to cure epilepsy. Who made this discovery? The ancient Romans for a long time believed in gladiators, forgetting that they were humans like them. They saw gladiators as beings with supernatural healing powers. Once a gladiator was defeated, they did not bury him immediately, but rather took his liver and blood to use as medicine. I wonder how that medicine would have been used, and I just hope it didn't have to pass through someone's tongue. Gross.